Alright, in this video, this is the factoring tutorial series video 3, and we're going to factor out a greatest common factor. We have two instructions here in blue and red, but before we jump into that, let's review the distributive property. Suppose we have an expression such as 6x times 2x plus 5. Now with an expression like this, what we could do here is we could distribute this 6x to these two terms inside of the parentheses. So distributive property, what does that mean? Let's take the 6x and let's multiply it by 2x. 2x is a term, so 6 times 2 is 12, and x times x is x squared. Therefore, 6x times 2x is 12x squared. Let's do the same thing for this other term here, the 5. 6 times 5 is 30, and that's a positive 30 because we are taking a positive 6 times a positive 5. But don't forget your x. You're taking 6x times 5. 6x times 5 is 30x. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this and reviewing this with you is because we will have expressions like this where we want to go back to something like this, and that's called factoring. Essentially what we're going to do here is we're going to reverse the distributive property. So I'm going to take this stuff, slide it on over, and I'm going to write another problem out that looks something remotely similar to what we have right here. So let's consider 15a to the third plus 9a squared minus 21a. Now here we have three terms in this problem, so I'm trying to throw a little twist into it, but this is something that has already been multiplied out. It looks something like this. We don't have any parentheses in this problem over here. So let's look at all three terms, 15a cubed, 9a squared, and negative 21a. Now if you watched video number 2, we looked at individual terms. That was this video right here. Make sure you go back and check that out where we found the GCF of several terms in this video. So back to these three terms, let's look at the coefficients. Let's look at the 15, the 9, and the negative 21. What is the biggest number that will go into 15 and 9 and this 21? Sure, it's a negative 21. How about 3? 3 will go into 15 nicely. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 goes into 9 nicely. 3 times 3 is 9. And 3 goes into this negative 21 nicely because 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. So I'm going to write that down as part of my GCF. Now, that is not all that these three terms have in common. We can pull an A out, but the question is, how many A's can we pull out? Notice that this term has some A's in it, this term has some A's in it, and this term has an A in it. The most that they have in common is a single A, and go back and check out video number 2 to understand that concept a little bit better. But one A, a single A, is the most that these three terms have in common. So when we factor that out, what we want to do is we want to think about reversing the distributive property. We want to be able to get 15a cubed back. Remember earlier I said that 3 goes into 15 nicely, and we said 3 times 5 gives us 15? Well, that's part of it. But now we have this a. How many more a's do we need to put here to get a cubed? We need 2 more of them. We need a squared. Check this out. 3a times 5a squared, that is 15 a to the third. Remember, this right here is a to the understood 1 power, and you want to add these two exponents. That's how we get that a cubed back. Now let's move on to this next term. We want to get 9a squared when we take this 3a times something. Well, earlier we said 3 times 3 will give us that 9, and since it's a positive, we want to put plus 3. So notice right now, 3 times 3 gives us that positive 9. A to the first times another a to the first, a to the first, a to the first, that's a squared when you multiply those. And then finally this last term here, remember earlier we said 3 times negative 7 will give us a negative 21. 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. And notice that I close this up with the parentheses, and you may be thinking, well, what about the a? Well, look here. 3a times a negative 7 is negative 21, and a. We don't have any more a's because we pulled that a out. And what you see right here, this final answer, 3a in parentheses, 5a squared plus 3a minus 7, this is our factored expression. And what we can do, notice the red instruction here, check your work by using the distributive property. 3a times 5a squared. 3 times 5 gives you 15. This is a to the first times a squared. Add your exponents, you get a cubed. So right there, our first term's good. 3a times 3a, well, 3 times 3 is 9. A to the first times a to the first, add your exponents, that's a squared. And then finally, 3a times negative 7. 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. And this a times no more a's gives us that single a there. I hope that makes sense. And there you have it, factoring an expression by finding the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor here was the 3a that we pulled out, and essentially we are reversing the distributive property that we did over here, and you will run across this a lot in any algebra course. And then in the next video, we'll start throwing in extra variables, just like back in video number 2, where we had some a's, b's, and c's. So we want to keep our eye out for even more variables that can pop up in these terms. And that's it for this video. I hope it helped.